It looks like I'm live. I'm checking. Uh-oh. What up, team? What's good? Yes, I am a little early. I am getting this technology figured out. What's going on, Bradley? How you doing, brother? Appreciate you coming through. What's going on, Chuck? How's it going? Looks like I'm getting everybody in. And even if you're going to miss this, that's cool. We get it. Hit me up with any questions at askfredsmith.com when you go to the replay. What's going on, Nikita? Hopefully all is well. So we're going to get this party started here pretty soon. Make sure I got the right time. Super excited to be here. Thank you for saying I'm live. I don't want to be too early. I want to make sure I get this one on the dot this time. If I get one thing right in my life, I want to get this one right. How's everybody's fourth? Pretty good? All right, so I think we got about one more minute. Nice. Family and food. Well, I am going to start on the dot, and it is time. So I want to welcome you guys to the Thought Leader Academy. This really is a big deal, and I want to thank you for your trust. You can hit the Q&A anytime that you want. We are live, and I want to make sure that you get exactly what you want. And the cool thing about Thought Leader Academy is that it's super simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. If you look at the background right here, you have a drill instructor looking and he's grilling the recruit. I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. I had to do that for 12 weeks of my life before I was considered a United States Marine. I did it longer than that because they have another program. And we're going to go into the significance of that and how that ties into the New Room Collective. Because as a Marine, what I had to learn was what we're going to go into in these next couple of weeks here. And the part that I didn't get at the time that was super important to me was the fact that I was being empowered with a gift. And I didn't know it at that time. And in the Marine Corps, you have different phases. So it's first phase, second phase, and third phase. And by the time I got to third phase, the same stuff that used to aggravate me on first phase was super easy. So we're going to take that approach to the Thought Leader Academy because there's a lot of BS and noise out there. So you've made an investment to take this knowledge and really, really run with it. So if you've already been in the military, that's cool. If you've already been in the Marine Corps, you don't have to go through this boot camp again, so to speak. But the good news is I'm going to take the essence of all of that stuff and show you exactly how it applies in our everyday world. It doesn't matter whether it's business, it doesn't matter whether it's personal, it doesn't matter whether it's social, it doesn't matter whether it's spiritual. We are going to break this down to the nth degree. And I've got some super brilliant people who are here today. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Mr. Banker. Thank you, everybody who's here right now, because I don't want anybody to miss what's going on. So let's just jump straight into it. So here's what you can expect from me: the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. because that's refreshing to people these days. There's a lot of information out there, and part of being a thought leader just means really like your no means no and your yes means yes. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are in sales and marketing and business, and they learn all these fancy like, strategies and techniques, but people want people who are real these days. So that is the lost asset that we're going to cover over Thought Leader Academy. Because if you can grab people's mental eyeballs, that's what I like to call it, and really, for lack of a better term, impose your will legally, ethically, morally, then the world is yours. But we get caught up in a lot of the noise that's out there, hence the New Room Collective. That is specifically designed to form a new thought process that we're going to learn, and I'm going to finally reveal today here in Thought Leader Academy. So that's what you can expect from me, the truth. Guess what? I don't know everything. I don't have it all figured out. But I do know that this thought process that I learned in the Marines has served to the highest levels. I've been able to scale 5 businesses from zero to a few hundred million, all bootstraps. They all went on to become a multi-billion dollar companies, because I've had some people asking, how does this apply in business? So I've taken this exact same technology I'm going to roll out today and share it with you. It's also helped me with my family life. I run my family, not like the Marine Corps, but all my kids are 6-figure and multiple 6-figure earners. Some of them, make a little bit more, but that's a different story. But how did we get there? We get there with the thought process, the patterns. That's what this is all about. So this is stuff that you probably won't hear anywhere else, because a lot of people can't explain it. And part of being a thought leader is being able to explain things clearly and simple. And we're going to go into more specifics towards the end of this slideshow. The next thing that you can expect from me is trust, because it all starts with trust. Because without trust, we have nothing. And the only thing that we have in this life really are our words. And I don't want to go too far into the woo-woo stuff, because I am woo-woo, but let me put it to you this way. My head is really in the clouds, but my feet are firmly on the ground. And I think a lot of us miss that. And if you get that part right, you're really firing on all 16 cylinders. But if you get it wrong, you get stuck. So the Thought Leader Academy starts with trust, but it also starts with how to really get unstuck once and for all. And it's going to be a hard process for some people. I'm going to be super real with it. We spent 12 weeks just learning this thought process, this pattern. And I can't expect anybody to really master it overnight. There's a lot of screaming and yelling and a lot of other stuff. So I just want you to just trust this. This is the place where we're going to be able to unpack a lot of the questions that you have, the thoughts and the concerns. And the final thing is transparency. This stuff does not work if you aren't transparent. I've got a couple teams right now, and in one of the offices, there's not even a door. It's just like me and let's go. And if we can't talk about it in public or private, it probably doesn't need to be said. So that's rule number 1 for the Thought Leader Academy. I'm giving you guys some literally some high level stuff that I learned, when I was in my military schools, is that you always have to assume that the camera's on. You always have to assume that the microphone's on, because you never know. I mean, something as simple as a text, next thing you know, goes viral. And it was your personal thoughts. So how do we handle all of this stuff? Well, before we get there, I just wanted to set the stage a little bit. And is this making sense? If so, just let me know that you're still with me. All right. Because here's the outcome of the Thought Leader Academy. What I want everybody to do here is to master what I call the half-second step back. We have to create space and master discernment. All right. And here's the outcome. Discernment does equal control. So if you don't know a lot about me, I am super big on getting clarity, because clarity trumps persuasion and clarity drives results. So let's get these words cleared up real quick, okay? Discernment is the faculty of discerning. In other words, discrimination, acuteness of judgment and understanding. Well, guess what? I'm not an inclusive person. We're not inclusive people by default. But I want to go a little bit further into that definition. And I want y'all to go through, understand what you've gone through so far by going into the New Room Collective, okay? Because that room is specifically designed for what I'm sharing with you right here, right now in Thought Leader Academy, okay? So I want us to pick up the word that most people miss, and that's acute. All right. So here it is: sharp or severe in effect, intense. That's part of that half-second step back. Because when you are severe in your effect, a lot of people call me like a laser, like a sword, like ching, because my thoughts are so sharp. For some people, you can actually physically sometimes watch people blow back. How many of y'all really want that kind of a superpower? It doesn't matter whether it's your written words, whether it's your physical presence, whether it's the tone of your voice, but people know that your no means no and your yes means yes. And I'm going to reveal that through this whole Thought Leader Academy. Also, for acute, extremely great or serious, crucial, critical. These things are very important. And what I learned as a Marine was that, especially when I got to second phase, they were priming me for a lot of power to take somebody's life. And it didn't matter whether it was with me in the M16A2 service rifle. It didn't matter whether it was through the writing that I had to learn how to do as a public affairs specialist, media relations specialist. I did some other stuff that I can't get into. But words, the pen is mightier than the sword. I had to learn all of that stuff, right? Brief or severe. To me, that's a little bit redundant. But here's the one that I want us to also focus in on: sharp or penetrating in intellect, insight, or perception. Now, I want y'all to think about what we're doing in New Room Collective. That's exactly what we're doing. We're taking people from the left wing, the right wing, even people who consider themselves in the middle. And what are we doing? We're recalibrating people's perceptions. Isn't that what you do as a thought leader? You've got people coming into the room right now who at one point in time thought that this stuff was conspiracy theory stuff, right? But I've been able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, article after article, situation after situation, because that's what I love to do. I love to be able to expose that kind of stuff because I lived like that for almost 20 years of my life. So imagine thinking that I'm freaking nuts, you know? But then wait, there's other people like me who are out there. We're going to learn those exact same strategies by going through Thought Leader Academy right now. I'm going to reveal that stuff to you. So it doesn't matter whether you want to use this for your family life, again, whether you're for your personal life or your business life. I'm going to reveal the exact same framework. And I want y'all to understand this. This is a structure. This is a framework. It has nothing to do with mindset. And we'll get more into that next week. Okay. This is even before mindset, because this is the stuff that nobody talks about, that short of me selling my soul like I did in the Marine Corps, that you'd have to really be able to experience. And even then, most people can't understand it. So that goes into like my next part of this question, though. You know, what I want you guys to understand is, if we go all the way back to the very, very beginning, right? Why is this Marine screaming at this other Marine? Why do people voluntarily go through this hell? Has anybody stopped to really think about that for a second? I want to get some responses on this one because this is a very powerful point I'm trying to make here. He is voluntarily going through hell for 12 weeks and sometimes longer, depending upon, they've got something called the delayed entry program. And if you don't get it, that's cool. I don't expect you to get it. And that's fine. Correct. You want to be able to drop your programming, because in this game, you cannot develop fortitude is a good one. A means to an end. Yeah, some people do join the military for a means to an end. In this context, what I want y'all to understand: desensitize. Interesting. I wasn't expecting that response. That's a good one, but that's pretty accurate. I would actually say that's about 95% accurate. From behind the scenes on a drill instructor perspective, they only want you to be able to get your optics up. They want you to be able to create discernment. You have the ability, when you have an M16A2 service rifle that's loaded with a full metal jacket of 30 rounds, to literally take somebody's life. Okay. So, like, why do you think that Wade would just give you that kind of power? You have to be able to discern. Now, you may not need that outside of the Marine Corps, but I literally have been in combat situations where it's life or death. So we're either the first ones to fight or the first ones to die. So how does that apply in the civilian world? How does that apply in our world? Well, don't words cause wars? Don't people have a misperception of feelings, a misinterpretation, misperceptions, misunderstandings? You say one thing, but you actually mean something else, and somebody else gets offended or butthurt. Even if you said the right thing to the right person, even if you were actually able to speak to the right people. So we have to create discernment, because discernment equals control. Is that making sense so far? Much like PTSD, your brain has to be programmed in a way to recognize how to survive. We're going to get into that more into the second part. So I want to bookmark that thought for a second, because you're onto something. So I'm going to go into the 4 parts of the Thought Leader Academy right now. So the first week, which is today, we're actually going to go over the optics. Okay. We're going to see the world with a new set of filters in place. So I'm not going to scream at you. That's the good news. We don't need to scream today, okay, or the next few weeks. All right. Now, the second part of this is the calibration. We're going to test and experiment with these new optics in place that I'm going to reveal today. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that this makes sense so far. All right. So the foundation is permanently becoming congruent with your view of the world and consistently attracting the right people into it. Now, here's the reasons why, because most people don't talk about why they want that. We want it to serve your narrative. It's just that simple. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. I have to have my cup filled first before I can give to other people. But I think what most people do is they tend to over rotate and become so selfish to the point where their cups get too big, and then they're not willing to serve others. And the last time I checked, in order to get what you want, you have to give other people what they want. So what we have to do is make a conscientious shift. And the only way that we can do that is just become permanently congruent with our view of the world, because our no means no, our yes means yes. Are you in my huddle or out my huddle, right? And that's what we're going to work on in the third week. But this one right here is starting to actively live and experience life in present time. So what does that mean? How many of us become hooked or attached to other people's thoughts versus us pushing our thoughts out into the world? Because as a thought leader, what we're working to do is impose our will. What we're working to do as a thought leader is to increase our influence. What we want to do as a thought leader is we become source. It's more than just becoming the authority or the expert or what some of these other people talk about in marketing and sales worlds. Because when you are the source of something, do your words carry more weight or less weight? Do I need to manipulate the environment more, or do I need to manipulate the environment less? Because when you are source, then pretty much what you're saying, people see you as beyond anything that they can label. So let's just put a label on it right now. You are the source. And part of being a thought leader is exactly that. You are starting up conversations. It doesn't matter whether it's in your business. I know Judy's working on a book right now. It doesn't matter whether you're authoring that book. You want to be able to have your words have so much weight that people call you dense. Not dense as in dumb dense, but dense as in they know when they come to you, they're getting red meat. And I think just from looking at the markets, a lot of people out here are starving for people who can give out red meat. And a lot of us have that red meat inside of us, but we just don't know how to explain it in a way that makes sense to people. So look at this whole Thought Leader Academy more as a big feedback loop. Does that make sense? Are y'all with me so far? Because what you're going to do is, this is not theory, guys. You actually have to go out here and do a lot of this stuff. Now, the cool thing about it is this very first module that we're going to go into requires just a little bit of listening, because automatically what's going to happen is what I'm going to reveal to you, your brain has no other choice but to just either accept or reject it. A lot of people don't want to know the truth. And guess what, Angie, you're right. And that's okay. But wouldn't it make more sense as a foundation that not only are you becoming permanently congruent with your view of the world, but you're attracting the right people into it to serve the narrative? I'm going to give you an example of that. When I've been working with over 3,000 business owners, it didn't matter whether or not they had a brand or a non-brand, or whether they were an entrepreneur, or maybe they were a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. They all had one thing in common. Even if they were niched down, even if they had like their quote unquote message together, they were scared. They were still scared to tell people no. They were still scared and worried about their survival. So what do? They get the wrong people in there, right? They're not attracting the right people. Now they have to walk on eggshells. And this is something that they either built or created, or they're managing, right? So what happens? Because you are attracting the wrong people, what's going on is, through time, your whole message shifts. And in most cases, it shifts the wrong way. So what happens? You become less effective because you're not attracting the right people into it to serve your narrative. Does that make sense? That's the reasons why people also get married and divorced so much, because you didn't have clarity as to what your foundation should be. You didn't know what you should have valued, or maybe the values changed, but there was no communication bridge or stuff like that. That's the reasons why becoming a thought leader is so critical, because when you actually plant your flag and finally say my no means no and my yes means yes, you create another open lane. Do you agree or disagree with me so far? Because I want to make that key distinction right now. Cool. Super cool. So again, here's the pop question. Why is this drill instructor screaming at the recruit? Everybody should be able to answer this right now. All right, let's go. To create discernment. And again, go back and look at all of this stuff, because again, this is yours. We're going to keep it up. I'm also going to put it into our module holder, the Kajabi. Okay, cool. So here's the 3 magic words that are going to kill your progress. If you've already said this so far in my presentation, you've already failed. Does anybody want to take a guess with these 3 magic words that will kill your progress? Because this is super critical that we get this part right. Because maybe I am going to say something that you've heard before, but the truth of the matter is, if it's in the wrong order, just like if you try to contact somebody via phone, if you're 1 digit off, guess what? You don't contact that person. So I don't see anybody taking a shot at it. I'm going to give it to you. I know that. The 3 magic words that will kill your progress in the Thought Leader Academy are the words, I know that. So how do you really know if you know something, though? Yes. I like how you put that in bold. The way that you know if you know something is if you live it, you know it. That's the reasons why this is not a theory academy at all. This is not about the mental gymnastics. It's about rearranging some things, true, but not the mental gymnastics. So with that being said, let's jump straight into some optics, because I know some of you guys are in listen only mode, and that's okay. All right. So for starters, there are 2 main types of thought. This one's going to free up a lot of you guys' minds right now. The first type of thought is technical thought. Does anybody want to take a shot at what technical thought is? Okay. Technical thought is basically all the survival 101 stuff that we've learned. It could be our trade, our profession, what we're doing for a living, all the little functions and features that we have to do in order to be able to earn an honest dollar. That's kind of like the technical thinking. That's the stuff that we have to do. We're literally turning wrenches every single day. All right. Even if you have in your own business, you're still informed turning wrenches. So, with that being said, the opposite of that would be fundamental thinking. So, who wants to take a guess at what fundamental thinking is? Because this is a very key distinction here. We're not taught to think, hey, am I more of a technical thinker or am I more of a fundamental thinker? So, part of the New Room Collective answers this question. Because what do I say? I say bring the data, not the drama, right? A little bit of lag. Okay, cool. So technical versus fundamental thinking is just higher level thinking. I'm going to give you an example of that. If you've ever played football, then you'll understand this analogy. You have the players on the field, you've got the coaches on the sideline, then you've got the people who actually, are over those coaches, and then in most cases you have the executives in the executive box. So what I want to show everybody is what those executives in the executive boxes are thinking and those other coaches who are coaching coaches. Because there is a such thing. I know a lot of people make that fun online. But the reasons why that's important is because as technicians, that's how we get stuck. So as an example, if you happen to be a solopreneur, you're turning wrenches every day. It doesn't matter whether you're a dentist, a chiropractor, blah, blah, blah. You are the technical thinker. If you are not actually adjusting people right, getting in people's teeth right, or whatever else you're doing out there, you are the technician. You have to do it, period, end of story. And we get caught up in that kind of thinking. Then you have the fundamentalists who are more of the high level thinkers, right? It's not to say one is good or bad, because here's really the $1,000,000 question though. What thinking pattern gets us stuck the most? I almost gave it away, and I know that there's a little bit of a lag here, but I just want us to think about this. And also, if you haven't seen what I'm doing right now, there's a power to asking questions. We're going to go into that a little bit later, but questions hook the mind. So we have to be able to ask better questions as thought leaders in order to be able to hook higher quality minds. Does that make sense? And we're going to go into that a little bit more. Yeah. So we get stuck up in the technical way of thinking. Now let's take that into New Room Collective, right? You have left wings and you've got right wings in there, right? They're stuck in the technicalities of what they represent. So they create this bias that's unnecessary. So remember, getting back into that sports analogy, the people who own the skyboxes are the ones who can see the whole playing field. So it doesn't matter what team you're on. I'm showing you how to think like a skybox person. Does that make more sense now? Because now we can see the entire playing field. And because we can see the entire playing field, we can make better decisions in judgment. And with that comes very, very much so a lot more power. Any questions or thoughts on that? And if you do, just again, go back to askfredsmith.com and I'll do my best to address them either one-on-one or collectively in the group. All right. So also what we're exposing in the New Room Collective is two core problems with traditional thought. And here they are. When it doesn't matter whether you're in business, it doesn't matter whether you're having a family. There's only two basic types of problems that you're ever going to have. You're only going to either have a knowing problem or a doing problem. Most people don't know what they don't know, so therefore, in most cases, they just don't know. I can't get mad at somebody who doesn't know what they don't know. I have to show them. So that's more of a shame on me problem, because as a thought leader, I'm supposed to show them what they're supposed to do. Like when I've had employees, I had to show them how to turn the wrenches. I had to show them what my expectations were. I had to show them that this is what needs to happen in order to get something done. So let's take this in another real world example. Let's just say you're working on a business model right now. If you don't even know what you don't know, then how do you expect to know it? It sounds like circular logic, but when you really think about it, it actually makes total sense. That's the reasons why mentorship is so important. So then you have a doing problem. So a doing problem is a little bit different than a knowing problem, because once you've been exposed to the knowledge, that's why me and Taylor take such an iron hand approach in the group. Because if it's somebody who's new, we already told you that we have something in the background that you need to know first before you start posting. And then you've got people in there who get filleted and ultimately they boot themselves out because they know that they should be doing better, but yet they choose to go against the grain. And we have so many people trying to understand the thought process of Thought Leader Academy that what happens is collectively, that's why we call it the New Room Collective, we're going that we don't support that way of thinking. Get out, because we're all working to do the same thing. We're all working to elevate ourselves and get to the next level. And that's what thought leaders do. But you have to take a stance. Does that make sense? Or is Fred crazy right now? Because I want us to understand the difference between a knowing problem and a doing problem. And ask yourself right now, for whatever that you're working on right now, do you have more of a knowing problem or do you have more of a doing problem? Because that's super critical that we're able to do that. Because you have to be able to mentally shift gears. All right. So here's the $1 million question. Which problem pattern, see, I started twice. Which problem pattern gets us stuck the most? Thank you. Both. You can be so far into the details of just doing something that you don't have time to look up. You could be so much into the fundamentals of something that you know too much and you're not able to function. There are a lot of people out there who are super smart who get like 5 or 6 degrees, but you've heard that before. They have no common sense, right? They haven't done anything, but yet they get all papered up, right? And then you got so many people who just do so much stuff that they don't think that that's how the world really works. Cool. So here's another part of the optics. Which thinking pattern actually works for you? And here they are. You have absolute thinking, and then you have probability thinking. So let's go a little bit more into absolute thinking versus probability thinking. I'm going to tell you where most people get stuck just through my experience. Most people get stuck in absolute thinking. That's how we're designed. That's how we're trained for 12 years of our life. That's how we're trained in college. Even if they want to give you like a 20-page paper where you're allowed to think, there's still a box there. Okay. So we get caught up in absolute thinking. It's that binary thinking. It's the this or that. It's either or. Does that make it more sense? We typically get stuck in absolute thinking, and that's the reasons why we struggle, especially if you happen to be in a real technical profession, or like when I was doing insurance and some of the other stuff. It's pretty much basic. It is what it is. You just do what you do, and the numbers, they got the actuarials in the back. You have to learn other skills. But the probability thinking is something that we don't talk about. And that's what you're learning through triangulation. If you haven't watched that triangulation video, New Room Collective, go back and watch that, because probability thinking is what the casinos use. It's the law of the casino. The casinos, that's the reasons why in most cases they stay profitable, because they say, hey, as long as I talk to enough people and I'm going to have this amount of wins, this amount of losses, all I have to do is push the volume, I'm probably going to make this amount of money. If you look at it as a small business owner, it's the exact same thing. If I sell this much, and if I talk to this amount of people, and if I work in this primary market area, and if I do X, Y, and Z, and if I do it enough times, then I'm probably going to hit my number towards the end of the year. How many of y'all really, really, really think like that? Because perhaps you haven't thought of it that way until now, but a lot of people get stuck in the absolute thinking versus the probability thinking. But here's the trick behind what I'm saying. The thinking pattern that serves us the most is actually both. So what you have to do as a thought leader is actually take a mental assessment and look at yourself and ask yourself, hey, which one am I more of? Am I more of an absolute thinker, or am I more of a probability thinker? Because absolute thinking does come in handy. Absolute thinking is when, hey, you know what? This is not in alignment with my values. Go to hell. Like I'm out on that. That's my no means no, and my yes means yes. Probability thinking would be, hey, you know what? If we started this business over here, because here's a starving market right here, and if we do X, Y, and Z, chances are we could finish up with this. So you need both. So what I'm going to show you today is really how to switch gears, but I got to get the optics right first. Is this still making sense so far? Cool. And here's one more that's a biggie. Which brain pattern do you follow the most? Are you more of a left brain thinker? Or are you more of a right brain thinker? Because this right here, if you get this part wrong, chances are you will always attract the wrong people. Or maybe you have to create more energy, or maybe you have to outsource things to other people in order for you to get them done. But you have to really make a decision right now as to are you more of a left brain thinker? And I'm going to give you a perfect example. People hate when I say this, but you guys have watched me do it in New Room Collective. Most of your left brain thinkers are on LinkedIn. That is a specific professional platform designed for left brain people. Anytime you get somebody from Facebook on there, they get filleted. It's just like, we don't do that. This is more of a professional organization. How many of y'all on LinkedIn have actually seen that phenomenon in play? And then you've got your right brain thinkers who, not necessarily saying Facebook is more right brain because that's just more liberal or conservative in that case. But your right brain thinkers tend to be a little bit more on the creative side. They tend to be on Facebook a lot more because they can share images and all the other stuff. Or maybe, you've got like Instagram or some of the other places like that. Like I said, I want to be able to separate the distinctions. Left brains are more analytical, right brains are more critical. I'm sorry, left brains are more critical and analytical, right brain are more creative. So are you more of a left brain thinker, or are you more of that in play? Chances are what I'm saying right now can shift your entire business model if you happen to have a business. Chances are what I'm saying right now can shift your employees. It can shift so much stuff just from you thinking this, because most of us don't have time or even think like this. That's why we really will never ever have to talk about this stuff again, because now you're taking mental inventory of the thought process involved with it. So which brain pattern serves us the most? It's both. What you're experiencing, LinkedIn is like being in Facebook jail. A lot of truth to that. So it's just like you need both in order to be able to see the entire playing field. You have to be able to shift gears, but more importantly, you have to even know that gears exist. And I think a lot of us miss that. Some of us just come up in families, like my whole family was creative. I had to learn how to be a left brain thinker in order to survive. I do attract a lot of people who are from the creative world, but I've also worked in business where I've had to have absolute results. That's why I did door-to-door sales for 4 years, because I knew for a fact that I had to get bottom line thinking, otherwise I would have destroyed myself. So I did door-to-door sales for 4 years before I joined the Marine Corps, just so I could get a little bit more of that left brain binary thinking. So I literally only had 7 seconds when I went to go knock on somebody's door and they didn't know me from Adam Housecat to see whether or not they get me to like me so that they would buy something. That's more of a left brain thinking. I did that for a couple of years. So hopefully you're being able to see that, because you may have to do things that are completely outside of your quote unquote comfort zone so that you can be able to get the integrated thinking. So now let's start putting all of this together, because we're nearly done. This method right here is beyond worth what you've ever even paid coming in here. I can already tell you. This is the method that has been forged by 7 to 10 figure business earners that I've worked with over the years. This is something that, combined with a Marine Corps experience, has been pretty bulletproof for me. I challenge you to go ahead and actually beat this model up, because it's pretty solid. This is the one that Taylor single-handedly was like, dude, like you've got the goods on this one. So I'm going to reveal to you what me and him talked about right now, and it's called the source method. So this is a very small but powerful construct that we're going to be going through in the Thought Leader Academy over the next few weeks. And it's simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. There's a flow involved with this process that I'm about to reveal right now. So here you go. Whenever you're looking at information, why are we looking at the information? Well, in most cases, we're looking at the information because we want to assess the situation. And the biggest question that I like to ask myself when I'm stopping to use discernment is this what's really going on? And you're seeing it right now in the New Room Collective. It comes up like when we first launched that, it's just like at first it was a conspiracy theory. People were then this can't be real, this can't be real, this can't be real. And it's like, yeah, is this what's really going on? Yeah, it very much so is. So their optics were off. So we started getting that calibrations. So hopefully that's making sense. So we want to assess the situation first. So then we want to look at the outcome. So in New Room Collective, why do we want to know if this is a conspiracy theory? Like, what's the outcome once we get that piece of knowledge? Because information affects our lives. It doesn't necessarily mean whether it's good or bad, but now we can start using discernment because we're slowing down a little bit. And now we're taking a pattern and a train of thought that actually works and you can take it anywhere. So the outcome is, are we starting, changing, or stopping things with the end in mind? Because remember, when you have incomplete information, that's the reasons why we continue to look for more information, because we're looking to better our lives. We're looking to increase our survivability. We're looking to shift something or shift some type of narrative that serves us. So when we take that one little piece in mind, is this the outcome that's going to serve me? So are we starting, changing, or stopping things with the end in mind? That's what the O is for outcome. And now here's my favorite part. I love living here. I love uncovering reality. Have I asked the best questions? So if you happen to be a coach watching this, or somebody who's in the business of asking brilliant questions, like a lawyer or a doctor or anybody else in between, you have to be able to learn how to uncover the reality, because the problem that the patient gives you typically isn't the problem. So we have to dig a little bit deeper. So uncovering the reality is, have I asked the best questions? And if not, what are they? And that's based on going through this process right here. Because after you uncover the reality, now we have to figure out the correct estimation. So have I triangulated the most probable outcome? I'm going to say that a different way. Have I put all of the pieces together that I have, because there are more unseen pieces, to really get a correct gauge on what's going on? Do you see how I just flipped that back to the situation? That's really how that thought process goes. So I want you to go back over this over and over and over again, because that is the basic pattern that we are going to use in order to win. It's very powerful. It's very lethal. But we're going to go into more of it detail in these next few weeks so that we can really get to the bottom line of being able to master this one pattern. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, or concerns right now? I know there's a little bit of a lag, so I'm going to allow a couple seconds for it. And if you're still with me, give me some likes. Need to make sure we're still on. Okay, super cool. Well, I'm glad I'm explaining it clearly, because like I said, go back and watch how all of these dots are connecting, because they really don't get much more higher level than this. After that, the acuteness of what we were talking about comes in. But again, like I said, this first module is so powerful that literally you won't ever have to go through the other parts of this process in order to see exactly how this is just going to shift your life. It's total magic. It's going to be hard for you to unsee this. So now with that being said, I'm going to go into the last slide. I'm not going to go fast in this slide, but what I like to do is, just like in the Marine Corps, we have to get ready for the next level stuff, right? So I'm going to give you a preview of the calibration next week as far as what we're going to talk about, because I want y'all to start practicing this right now and putting this into action. I want you to look at yourself as a kind of like you're now a mad scientist in the world, and you're just going to start experimenting and tweaking things in your world to see what works, because this has worked across all channels, all industries, all boards. So I'm going to give you the 9 essentials of perfect thought leadership. So we're going to start out with this one right here. One of the goals is to provide clear context so that the person engaged in your thoughts understands how it fits into their narrative overall. So I'm going to say it a different way. People, and Facebook has this mastered, people have Facebook has what they call interruption marketing. Okay. Nobody, even though we have some world-class marketers on there and world-class salespeople, people do not go on Facebook looking to buy things. You got to understand that. So there's a form of interruption marketing, or we'll coin it right now, called narrative marketing. And essentially what they're doing is, I'm catching you in the middle of a story that's in your mind, and it's something that's pressing, it's something urgent, and it's going to cause you to engage. As a thought leader, that's exactly what you have to do. Because if you've done door-to-door sales or cold sales or any type of sales or marketing, or you're running a business, you know that typically most people aren't looking for your product. You have to go out there and actually give it to them. So you have to provide clear context. Not only that, but also how's it fitting into their narrative overall? Where are they at in their lives? What story is going on right now in their head? And all you're doing is literally dovetailing off of it. Like with New Room Collective, a lot of people was like, man, like is this COVID stuff real, or is this some bullshit that the government's giving us again? A lot of this stuff. So is this Area 51 real? Is this real? Is the Illuminati real? And blah, 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 blah. That's what I specialize in. That's what I've done my whole life. Good luck on trying to duplicate that. I spent a lot of time in secret environments just keeping things secret. But now it's time for me to start revealing the truth. So for whatever you're doing in life, this applies too. It doesn't matter whether it's your family, like we have kids right now. Some of them are still, trying to grow up and figure out the world. I know exactly where they're at in their narrative. So what do? I walk right back into that story, and that's how we connect and engage with people. So that's what that means from a very high level. All right. So include visuals and other multimedia if it makes understanding your thought easier. I cannot begin to not explain this to you any clearer. We have some NLP people in here, so y'all understand what's visual, what's auditory, what's kinesthetic, what's sensory. If you don't know what NLP is, just from a high level, there's all the different types of stimuli that you would need to know so that you can engage somebody effectively. That's what NLP essentially in a nutshell does for you. Okay, you want to be able to live where your audience is. Somebody from LinkedIn is going to fail miserably on Instagram because you can't, they're two totally separate thoughts. I got a picture of my Shelby up on Instagram, and then I'm talking about it, hey, this is cool, blah, blah, blah. On LinkedIn, that won't go. They're going to go, oh, this is the professional platform. But if I do like a technical article on does it beat Chevrolet, or, maybe there's some automotive distinctions, that's a different story. So you have to be able to put your thought in the audience, in the audience's space where it makes sense. So provides timelines and high quality thoughts into someone's narrative, always. So what we're going to work on next week is the calibration of your thoughts. We're going to work on exactly how, when you're explaining something, how does it land with your audience? How does it connect? Does it connect hard? Does it connect soft? Doesn't matter what your audience is, whether it's your family, business, personal, social, doesn't matter. Are you providing high quality thoughts so that every time you speak, does it have weight? All right. And here's another major secret. It cost me a lot of money just to understand this. And it's definitely more than what you guys have got for Thought Leader Academy. So when I worked for some of the other major companies out here, when we were building them, a lot of what they have is what they call word tracks. Okay, so word tracks are very important. The reasons why is because if you look at some of the best advertising, some of the best marketing, some of the best sales materials out there, anything like that, and you go to put it on a readability level, in most cases, people speak on like an 8 or 9-year-old person. Doesn't matter whether you've got a degree, whether you're a doctor or masterate. The easiest way to do this right here is to literally, when I'm speaking to people, and try this. This is gonna blow your mind. Literally, sometimes I will close my eyes and visualize that person as a kid, and I will talk to them like I'm speaking to an 8 or 9-year-old. I've gotten better now where I can keep my eyes open and do it. But just do that one thing, you are going to be shocked at how clear you start communicating. You're going to be shocked at how the words get smaller. They become more clear. Like another example, like my wife, her main language is Thai. And, same thing with mom. If I cannot explain it to them in such a simple way, especially for mom who came straight from Thailand, then guess what? I'm probably making it too hard. Now that doesn't apply all the time, but applies enough of the time. All right. So use value statements to craft your ideas so they're consistent and cut through the noise. In a meeting with the board, I communicate like I'm talking to third graders. 100%. That works. Now, you don't necessarily need to, sound condescending when you're saying it. I'm not saying that you are, Bradley, but it's true though. You want to be able to just keep it so simple. So Judy says when writing a book, it's a fact that you dictate the content, then do edits versus just writing the book so it can be read in half the time by the reader. Yeah, that's actually, Judy, a good point that you're making. Even on the very high levels for speed readers, sometimes they'll put the structure of the book so that people can just gloss over it and still be able to see it. But you want to be able to when you're keeping your wording clear, just make sure that it's at that level. So using value statements is a big deal. A lot of people don't even have mission statements, yet alone value statements. So it doesn't matter even whether you're in business or not. The truth of the matter is, what are your values? Like, are they clear and conspicuous? I have mine printed out since 2012, and I've only changed one word in 8 years. And everybody knows it. I actually may just post it here just for shits and giggles, because I want to give you an example. I don't like to just talk it. I'd rather walk it and show it to you. So I'll show you an example of mine. So that'll be a bonus I'll throw in real quick. All right. So here's the one that catches a lot of people though. Brilliant thoughts are crafted in 10 words or less. Genius, 2. You see what I just did there? Genius 2. But it's true though. Even some of your top marketers will tell you, like when you're writing a headline, to like keep it under 15 words or less. When I was working in the Marine Corps and I was doing journalism, we did our best to keep it subject, verb, object. Those headlines still are what they call super lead-ins or whatever, super headers, and marketers call them something different, but it's the same concept. Less is more. And I think Ronald Reagan had the quote, I would have written you a shorter letter. I just didn't have time. It's the exact same thing. We just have to be mindful of our words, because less is more. So here's a big one right here. This is another major secret. Tell the person what to not do, not what to do. So let me give you an example of that. Don't think the color blue. What color are you thinking? You have to think blue in order to not think blue. And even if you want to give me another answer like red, yellow, green, it doesn't matter. I still got you in the exact same ballpark. So when I tell people don't believe a word I say, I genuinely mean it. Like, I don't want you to believe a word I say, because it's going to force you to test this information just because some people are so rebellious. And that's okay. Because when you get the win, then we connect even harder. So just try that as an experiment for 1 second, because the way that the mind works is, even if you don't want somebody to think something, it has to register first in order for them to not think it. Very powerful tool there as a thought leader. So thoughts should be so clear that there is no need or little need to explain them. That's why I keep stopping every once in a while and checking in with you. And I'm saying, does that make sense? Are you with me? Do you get it? A lot of people need to be able to hear you say that for 2 reasons. The first reason is I want to make sure that I'm communicating super simple and super clear. The other thing is, if you're losing somebody and they're stuck on one of your thoughts, how do you expect them to continue to follow the narrative that you're painting? It's practically impossible. So your thoughts should be so clear that there is no need or little need to explain them. And this is part of the circle, but I didn't want to start with this one. I wanted to end with this one, because this one needed the explanation of all the other dots to connect to it. So a good thought process is simple. It has all of the necessary elements, but nothing more. Even in New Room Collective, I'll get people PMing me. Can you go a little bit deeper in that thought? No, I can't. Can you talk about this? No, I can't. Because I don't want to go any further. What I want to do is spend my job producing so much high quality content that it forces you to engage and go deeper down your rabbit hole, because there's just so many and so endless. So I only produce enough of the thought necessary for you to continue. And Judy called me out today, which is pretty good. She's like ninja like that. She's like, oh, there's your pattern. The bigger stuff is usually in the comments. I'm like, yep, that's true. Franklin called me out the other day. He was like, man, once a week, you always call out your anons. I'm like, yep, it's a predictable pattern. So when you start thinking higher level, you're able to pull yourself off that playing field and starting to see the entire stadium at some point in time. And then you realize that the stadium is owned by somebody, and then the city's owned by somebody. You know, it just starts getting endless. But we got to start somewhere. So hopefully this made sense. And does any questions, thoughts, concerns, or comments? Did anybody have anything that they wanted me to add? Because I've got just a few minutes. I will do some Q&A right here. LOL. I see you. I see you, Judy, all day long. Cool. Super cool. So if you happen to catch this on the replay and you have questions, go to www.askfredsmith.com. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Hopefully this was a really great foundation, but like I said, my challenge to you, because I will challenge you, and that's what you should do with everybody in your tribes, challenge them. Challenging people will force them to either, excuse the French, either piss or get off the pot. You don't want to waste your time with people who aren't in alignment with what your values and your goals are. And that's what we're going to cover next week in a lot more detail. It's probably not the way that you've ever done it before, because again, like I said, I'm coming at it from a different angle. I'm coming at it from a higher position, from like what I learned in the Marines. A lot of stuff was, I wouldn't say secret, but it was just, we had to just do a little bit of a different thought process. So of course. Okay. You guys are good. I appreciate it. You're welcome, Judy. Bradley, not a problem. Digest your notes, please. Go through everything. But my biggest challenge to you guys is, please, I know this first module was definitely super intense, but really, I don't think you would even need to go back through this again, but some parts of it you will. But for the most part, you got your optics in place for 101. All right. So I love you. We'll chat soon. And if you need anything, give me a holler.